Jasmine Carter walked into the boutique with the confidence of a woman who knew her worth. Dressed in a sleek navy blue dress and heels, she carried herself with grace. The store was luxurious. Glass shelves lined with designer handbags, soft music playing in the background, and the faint scent of expensive perfume in the air. She ran her fingers along a black leather purse, admiring the craftsmanship. This was a treat for herself after a long work week. As she turned to look at another bag, the door chimed. A tall, broad-shouldered police officer stepped in, Officer Chad Morrison. Jasmine didn't know him personally, but she had heard of him. Many black residents had. His reputation? Not good. The boutique owner, a slim woman in her 50s, exchanged a knowing glance with Chad. Within moments, his deep voice boomed. "Ma'am, I need you to step away from the merchandise." Jasmine frowned. "Excuse me?" "I saw you stuff something in your bag," he accused, folding his arms. Jasmine's brows furrowed. "That's not true. You can check my bag." She calmly opened it, revealing only her wallet and phone. But Chad wasn't interested in the truth. He stepped closer, his eyes hard. "You think I haven't dealt with your kind before?" A few customers glanced their way, some pulling out their phones to record, others pretending not to notice. Jasmine's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "I have my receipt for everything I purchased." It didn't matter. Chad grabbed her arm roughly. Gasps echoed through the store. A woman whispered, "Oh my God!" Before Chad could drag her toward the exit, the glass doors swung open. A sleek black SUV pulled up outside, its tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, confident, powerful, and he was headed straight for them. If you believe in justice and standing up against discrimination, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. The boutique sat in the heart of an upscale New York suburb, a place known for its wealth, prestige, and exclusivity. The streets outside were pristine, lined with towering trees, luxury cars, and high-end designer stores that catered to the city's elite. Inside, the boutique gleamed with spotless glass displays, showcasing handbags that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The soft hum of instrumental music played in the background, and the faint scent of fresh leather filled the air. Everything about this place screamed high class and selective. But despite her success, Jasmine still felt like an outsider here. She could feel the subtle stares, the judgment, the way the boutique owner's eyes lingered on her longer than they did on the other customers. And now, as Officer Chad Morrison tightened his grip on her arm, the air inside the store grew heavier. This wasn't just about a handbag. It was about something much bigger. Chad's grip on Jasmine's arm tightened as he yanked her toward the boutique's entrance. "You're coming with me," he growled, pulling her roughly through the glass doors. Jasmine stumbled, but quickly regained her balance. "I didn't steal anything. Check the cameras, check my bag." "Save it." Chad cut her off, pulling his radio to his mouth. "Backup requested. Got a shoplifter resisting arrest." A few bystanders had gathered outside. Some were recording on their phones, whispering among themselves, but no one stepped in. Jasmine took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. She had seen this happen to others before. If she fought back, things could get worse. Chad leaned in closer, his voice laced with condescension. "You people always think you're too good to follow the rules." Jasmine's jaw clenched. You people. There it was. This wasn't about justice, it was about power. Then, the low hum of an engine filled the tense silence. The sleek black SUV that had been parked nearby suddenly came to life. The driver's door swung open, and a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out. Dressed in a tailored charcoal suit and expensive sunglasses, he walked with the kind of confidence that made people move out of his way without him asking. Chad glanced at him and let out a short, mocking laugh. "Oh, great. Let me guess. Rich husband coming to throw money at the problem? NBA player? Rapper?" The man stopped a few feet away, slowly removing his sunglasses. Marcus Carter looked Chad dead in the eyes and spoke in a voice so calm, it was chilling. "I'm Special Agent Marcus Carter, Department of Justice." Chad let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "Oh, you're serious? DOJ?" He smirked, shaking his head. "Nice try, but I don't buy it." Marcus didn't say a word. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out his DOJ badge, flipping it open for Chad and everyone else to see. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The onlookers, who had been uncertain before, now murmured among themselves. The boutique owner, who had been silent when Chad was manhandling Jasmine, suddenly took a step back. "Oh, Officer Morrison, maybe we should," she stammered. But Chad ignored her. His smirk faltered, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. He crossed his arms. "I don't care who you are. Your wife is a shoplifter, and I'm taking her in." Marcus tilted his head slightly, his voice steady. "Then charge her." Chad blinked. "What?" "Charge her," Marcus repeated. "Read her rights. Tell her exactly what she stole. Show me the security footage." Chad hesitated. He glanced toward the boutique owner, who now looked nervous. Marcus turned to her. "Do you have proof my wife stole anything?" The woman swallowed hard. Well, I just assumed—" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "So, no proof. Just an assumption." Chad's jaw clenched. "I saw her reaching into her bag. So did the cameras." Marcus pulled out his phone. "And I'm sure you won't mind if we request that footage?" Chad's face turned red. He was losing control of the situation, and he knew it. Marcus turned slightly, pulling out his phone and dialing a number. "This is Special Agent Carter. I need a federal unit at my location immediately." Now it was Chad's turn to panic. Jasmine, still shaken, crossed her arms and looked Chad in the eye. "How many times have you done this?" she asked, her voice strong despite the emotion bubbling beneath. Chad scoffed. "What are you talking about?" Marcus didn't let him dodge. "Officer Morrison has multiple complaints of excessive force and racial discrimination. Every single one buried by the department." A hush fell over the small crowd. A woman standing nearby gasped. "Wait, is that true?" A man in a business suit muttered, "I knew I recognized him. He stopped me last year for looking suspicious outside my own office." Then another voice, "Yeah, he pulled my teenage son over for no reason last month. Had him sitting on the curb like a criminal." More whispers, more people coming forward, and then a voice behind them. "Excuse me, sir, I'm Lisa Turner, Channel 7 News." Chad turned sharply. A woman with a microphone and a cameraman had appeared. "We were shopping nearby and caught most of this on video. Would you mind answering a few questions?" Chad froze. The situation was spiraling, and Chad knew it. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but before he could speak, an older black man in a crisp button-down spoke up. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years, and I've seen you pull over black drivers for no reason more times than I can count." A white woman nearby hesitated, then spoke carefully. I've never had a problem with Officer Morrison, but I can't ignore what I'm hearing." A young black woman holding her phone up to record nodded. "We've been saying this for years. Now y'all want to listen?" The division was clear. Some people stood by Chad, whispering excuses. Others looked at him with fresh eyes, finally seeing what had been in front of them all along. And Jasmine and Marcus? They weren't backing down. Jasmine took a deep breath, standing shoulder to shoulder with her husband. This time, Chad had messed with the wrong people. A fleet of police cars arrived. The police chief, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and a stiff posture, stepped out of his cruiser. His face was already sweaty, and his eyes darted from Marcus to the news cameras. He knew this was bad. "Agent Carter," he greeted stiffly, clearing his throat. Marcus didn't blink. "Chief Daniels," Daniels sighed, turning to Chad. What the hell is going on here? Chad puffed up his chest. Just doing my job, sir. She was stealing. The boutique owner panicked. I never actually saw her steal anything. The chief's eyes widened. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Marcus took a slow step forward, pulling a folder from his inside jacket pocket. I assume you received this? The chief hesitated, then took it. He flipped it open, his eyes scanning the contents, and his expression changed completely. Federal warrant, signed, approved. To investigate Officer Chad Morrison for racial discrimination, abuse of power, and multiple misconduct complaints. Chad's face drained of color. Wait, what? The chief exhaled sharply. Morrison, you're relieved of duty. Hand over your badge and gun. Chad staggered back. You're taking their side? The chief's jaw tightened. I'm following the law. You should have tried it sometime. The moment was caught on every phone camera. Jasmine stood tall, her dignity intact. Chad? He looked smaller than ever. The street was silent. Phones were out, cameras rolling. The boutique's glass windows reflected the flashing police lights, and the air felt thick with tension. Chad stood frozen, his fists clenched at his sides. His badge and gun had just been stripped away, his career slipping through his fingers like sand. Then, in an instant, everything exploded. With a furious growl, Chad lunged at Marcus. Gasps filled the air. Someone screamed. The news reporter instinctively took a step back, but the camera never stopped recording. Marcus, however, was ready. With one swift, practiced motion, he sidestepped, caught Chad's arm, and used his own momentum to slam him face first against the police cruiser. Chad grunted in pain as Marcus pressed his arm behind his back, holding him in place. Bad move, Marcus muttered, his voice calm but firm. Chad struggled, his pride wounded more than anything else. But he wasn't in control anymore. The irony? This was exactly how Chad had treated so many others. Now it was his turn. The police chief stepped forward, his expression unreadable. But then, to everyone's shock, he pulled out a pair of handcuffs. Officer Morrison, he said flatly, you're under arrest for misconduct, excessive force, and obstruction of justice. A ripple of shock and satisfaction ran through the crowd. Chad turned his head, disbelief and rage flickering in his eyes. You're seriously arresting me? After everything I've done for this department? The chief didn't blink. Number, I'm arresting you for everything you've done to this community. Click. The cuffs snapped shut. Chad was yanked backward and forced into the back of a squad car, his own colleagues closing the door behind him. The symbolism was undeniable. Jasmine exhaled, feeling the weight of the moment. The man who had tried to humiliate her, who had abused his power for so long, was finally facing justice. A murmur spread through the crowd. Someone shouted, "About time!" Others cheered. The news reporter stepped closer to Jasmine. "Mrs. Carter, would you like to make a statement?" Jasmine looked into the camera, her voice steady. "This isn't just about me," she said. "This is about every person who's been mistreated and ignored. Today, we saw what happens when we refuse to stay silent." The reporter turned to Marcus. "Agent Carter, do you believe this case will lead to a larger investigation into racial profiling?" Marcus slipped his sunglasses back on and nodded. "Count on it." Within hours, the footage went viral. Millions watched as the once powerful officer was exposed and arrested. News stations played the clip on repeat. Social media exploded with hashtags like #JusticeForJasmine and #HoldThemAccountable. This moment was bigger than just one incident. It was the beginning of something greater. Jasmine and Marcus sat in their living room, the soft hum of the news playing in the background. The events of the day still felt unreal, like something out of a movie. Jasmine curled up on the couch, sipping a cup of tea. "I still can't believe it," she murmured. Marcus sat beside her, his hand resting on hers. "Believe it. It's over." She shook her head slowly. For us, maybe. But what about the people who don't have a Marcus Carter to step in? Marcus's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. Meanwhile, outside their home, the world was still buzzing. The video of Chad's arrest had gone viral. It was on every major news outlet, flooding social media. Activists, politicians, and everyday people were demanding real change. How many more Chads are still out there? One tweet read. This isn't justice. It's just one cop. The system needs to change, another person posted. Then came the most powerful part. Chad's past victims started coming forward. A young black man told reporters how Chad had once pulled him over for a broken tail light and forced him to sit on the curb like a criminal. A mother shared how her teenage son had been handcuffed for matching a suspect's description, even though the suspect was a grown man. One by one, their voices grew louder and louder. As for the boutique owner, she tried to save face, issuing a public apology. I deeply regret how I handled the situation. I should have done more to support Mrs. Carter. But it was too little, too late. People saw through her words. Boycotts began. The store's ratings plummeted. Customers stopped coming. Jasmine scrolled through the news on her phone, taking it all in. She had won today, but the fight was far from over. Weeks later, justice was served. Chad Morrison was officially fired from the police department. His once proud reputation was in ruins, his name now tied to racial discrimination, abuse of power, and corruption. The DOJ moved forward with formal charges, ensuring that he wouldn't just lose his job, he'd face real consequences. Marcus remained deep in his work, dedicating himself to investigating other officers like Chad, determined to expose and remove those who abused their power. But Jasmine? She wanted to do more than just move on. She launched a community initiative to help victims of racial discrimination. Through legal aid, awareness campaigns, and mentorship programs, she made sure that people who had been unfairly targeted had the support they needed. Her initiative gained momentum fast. More people spoke out. More cases were investigated. Change was slow, but it was happening. One evening, Jasmine and Marcus stood on their balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. Marcus wrapped an arm around her. "We made a difference," he said softly. Jasmine smiled, but there was a fire in her eyes. "We did, but there's still so much more to do." They stood together, stronger than ever, ready for whatever came next. Because this wasn't just their fight. It was a movement. Despite the odds, truth and accountability win. The story highlights how perseverance and truth can lead to justice, even in a system designed to protect those in power. Chad thought he was untouchable, but in the end, his own actions brought him down. Jasmine's grace under pressure shows true power. Throughout the story, Jasmine never loses her dignity. Even when falsely accused, she remains composed, refusing to let Chad's abuse break her spirit. Her strength inspires others to speak up and demand change. Marcus's secret role as a federal agent flips the script. Chad saw Marcus as just another black man, someone he could intimidate. But Marcus's true identity as a DOJ agent turned the power dynamic upside down. This highlights the importance of not judging people based on stereotypes. A raw look at racial profiling and the necessity of reform. Chad's actions weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a bigger problem. The story doesn't just focus on one bad cop. It exposes how deeply ingrained racial bias is in the system and why real reform is necessary. At its core, this story is about standing up, fighting back, and demanding justice.